Good evening. I'm Greg Nerland, a member of the board of the Walnut Creek Library Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual Live from the Library, Rachel Howzell Hall, a Woman of Mysteries. Tonight's program sponsors are the East Bay Times and Minuteman Press Lafayette. I'm pleased to welcome tonight's guest, an award-winning mystery writer, Rachel Howzell Hall. Rachel is a native of Los Angeles and a graduate of UC Santa Cruz with a degree in English and American literature. She's best known for writing the bestseller, They All Fall Down, and the Detective Elouise Norton series of mysteries. Rachel's most recent book, These Toxic Things, has been released in paperback and is available at Flashlight Books in Walnut Creek. Rachel will be in conversation with another award-winning author, David Corbett. David is the author of 6 novels, including The Long-Lost Love Letters of Doc Holliday, which was nominated for the Lefty Award for Best Historical Mystery. Following their discussion, we will have a brief Q&A. Please use the Q&A box, not the chat box, to submit your questions at any time. If you enjoyed tonight's program, please consider making a donation to the Library Foundation to support programs like these. Visit our website, www.wclibrary.org, or click on the link located in the chat box to donate. And now, without further ado, please welcome Rachel Howzell Hall and David Corbett.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Rachel.
Hey, David.
So
How are you?
I'm fine. You just told me before we started that Greg, the man who just introduced us, went to Dartmouth with your brother.
Yes, who is here? My brother, Terry. Hi, Terry. Hi, big brother.
Now, their mascot is the Big Green, but you went to UC Santa Cruz, and who were their mascots?
The slugs, banana slugs, all the way.
Banana slugs.
Yeah.
Go banana slugs.
Yes.
I love that. Okay. I was going to start with some funny questions, but I think I'm going to dig in instead with a really meaty one that we can really kind of talk about a lot because it really made me think about your books. And it's a quote from These Toxic Things. And I'm going to paraphrase, but I think it was, how many secrets should a woman keep to make herself interesting?
Yeah.
And the reason that spoke to me is I have a post coming up this Friday on Writer Unboxed, that blog I do on the craft.
Right.
And it's called Fascination, Explanation, and a Woman in the Corner Opposite. And that's from an essay by Virginia Woolf, where she says that all novels start with a woman in the corner opposite, a woman who fascinates us and who we want to know more about.
Yeah.
And in the course of the blog, I say one way to do this, to create intrigue in a character, if you're trying to figure out how to do that, is to create a secret.
Mm-hmm.
I said the difficulty is that once you tell the secret, you might explain the character and they become almost diminished in the reader's eyes.
Yeah.
And I've noticed in almost all your books, secrets play a really crucial role. But I have never once felt that once the secret was divulged, that I felt I understood everything about the character. There was always more. And I always felt that there was something else about that. Is that something you think about, or?
All the time. First, I want to say thank you to Walnut Creek for bringing us here to get to talk about books and mysteries and all these things that, you know, we like talking about. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And for everyone who showed up. I am fascinated by secrets. Like so many of us, I am a child of the church. We were raised Seventh-day Adventists, and with any religion, people put away parts of themselves so that they fit into what their belief systems are.
Well, that doesn't happen with Catholicism.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But, you know, with
Catholicism,
to agree. I grew up in a wonderful but imperfect family. And I thought, you know, we were the only imperfect family because everyone else looked so clean and everyone else seemed to get what it was to be Adventist. You know, they didn't drink, they didn't smoke, they didn't do any of this stuff. And, you know, my family, we watched TV on Saturdays. My dad smoked and drank, which, you know, is against all the health rules. And so I found myself, you know, keeping those types of little secrets because I didn't see anyone else doing that, right? And it wasn't until I got older and started talking to my friends and going to their homes and seeing all those imperfections and learning that, their mother was just as much as a wreck as mine. And our house wasn't our house wasn't as clean as theirs. And actually it was a little worse. Everyone was keeping themselves tight and clean and perfect and had all these awful things that were going on that I didn't see once a week at church. So I was fascinated by that. And I am a mom. My daughter's 17. And, she's looking through my old high school yearbooks and my college pictures, and she's seeing a woman that she doesn't know like that. A woman who would wear, the bin full of spandex dresses and little shirts and big earrings. She doesn't know who that is. And with that comes, what I did that night with that guy over there. She doesn't know that stuff. And as I'm getting older, I'm finding that I'm not actively keeping secrets from her, but there are parts of me that she does not know. Just like as I'm getting older and my mom's getting older and the people around me who I looked to are getting older, things that I didn't know about them, I'm starting to learn. And so it's all this learning and all this discovery. And these toxic things came out of, in some ways, growing up in that kind of environment where everyone's keeping secrets, but also I started it at the very beginning of the pandemic. And if you remember that at all, so many of us were involved in these kind of craft projects and cleaning things out and going through old boxes and remembering. And I pulled out a box and I was remembering something, and my husband, David, remembered it a different way. And my daughter remembered it a different way. And there are some things, family things, from growing up, and my siblings remembered it differently than I did. And so I just started thinking about memory and who owns that and what is a memory and how subjective all that is. And, women especially, we are the keepers of memories typically, and we are keepers of secrets typically. And that makes us, in mysteries, that's the femme fatale. That's, the villainous. That's someone who has done something wrong when in fact, it may not be something wrong. You can keep a secret for any other reason. So I'm fascinated with them because with my characters, just because 30 of their secrets we learn, there are like 600 more that you will never learn. And that for me makes someone terribly interesting. I think I know you, but you have no idea who I am. And I'm fascinated by that.
So I think that's the essence of characterization. I think we're all out to create characters whose the most important thing you can do in making them is to create the desire in the reader to know more about them.
Yeah.
And to do that, you almost always have to withhold something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know this, but apparently Shakespeare wrote out extensive explications of the motivations of his characters. He just didn't put them in the play.
Yeah.
Because he wanted the audience, he always felt that created greater audience motivation. If they didn't know, it wasn't explained. And I think that explanation in many ways kills the fascination with a character. And what I think the tightrope that you walk with, the secret that you do brilliantly, is that there's always more. There's always a complication. And I also want to get back to something that you said about memory. I worked as a private investigator.
Yes, you did. And thank you. I want to thank you again, because remember, I turned to you for And Now She's Gone, which was the story about a new PI. And you gave me so much great advice, especially with being using tears to get people to feel uncomfortable and give you the answer so that you can go away. I love that.
Wow. Yes. Well, it works with women, doesn't work with a guy. If I broke down an interview, trust me, that would not talk to me. I just have to be like the brother they really want to tell their secrets to.
Yeah.
But memory, we actually were very involved in a number of the recovered memory cases.
Mhm.
and therefore worked with Elizabeth Loftus, who's sort of
Ooh, yeah,
the great debunker of the whole recovered memory
I
thing.
remember. Mhm.
And I mean, they were just beginning to realize that memories, there's not a little museum in your head where you can go to the Dewey Decimal Number for, oh, right, 6th grade, May 5th. And there I was next to, Patty Hillis. And,
Yeah,
no, we create them every time we have them,
yeah,
why they're inherently reliable. And Jack, my boss, came up with this expression, which I love, which is memory makes liars of us all.
mm, yeah,
And that whole notion, that Rashomon moment that you've mentioned with your family going, oh, no, that's not what happened. Or, oh, I remember it really differently. And I just had my 50th high school reunion.
yeah.
Man, it was just a smorgasbord of, well, wait a minute, what I remember is, yeah, exactly.
Well, I kept journals. I kept diaries from 4th grade all the way up to maybe my 2nd year out of college. So whenever I'm remembering something different, I will go back to that day and find it. And it's like, well, I kind of wrote it all down here. Here's the evidence. But even then, I am telling this story, this memory, this recollection of, a 12-year-old who, her emotions are all over the place. So even when it's written down, it's still kind of like you're saying, it's still a little unreliable.
No, that's something they found out in like, for example, military people who write their memoirs,
Mhm.
and there are contemporaneous notes they will have made. And then
Yeah.
30 years later, they write their memoir, and they're almost like incompatible accounts of the event.
Yeah.
Just and once you realize that, then you realize that we're all just kind of making it up, and
Yeah.
it's spooky. And
Yeah.
again, it makes character and who we think we are and identity a lot more fluid than we might want to admit. And as a creative artist, that's just the goods. I mean, that's great. You
Right.
mentioned something else that I loved, and Elizabeth, no, I'm sorry, Virginia Woolf brought this up in the essay, which is that we all have to be readers of character, or we couldn't survive.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know
Yeah.
who to trust. We didn't know we should befriend. And children learn this instinctively. I mean, and it's almost like reading character is something that children do as a means of survival.
Yeah.
As people get older, they sort of get it becomes sort of solidified and no longer becomes as creative and fascinating. But novelists
Novelists.
remain children throughout their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have always, it's like, I love people and I hate people, because growing up, we're very observant. I was observant from like, as much as I, going back and thinking about it, paying attention to how people say it and their body language. And, which is one reason why I wrote it all down, because one, it bothered me, seeing past, the very happy pastor and knowing that there's something off about him. I guess that's why I'm scared of clowns. I don't like clowns, but because you don't know who they are. But yeah,
There's a word for that. There's a word for
it. Yeah, there's a fear of clowns. But that was one of the biggest things I think I missed with the shutdown is, not being around people, because they are who I populate my work with. It's one reason why I still have my day job, besides the money, of course. But being at home, I'm not going to get those who warmed up fish in the microwave battles, or the strange guy who drinks Diet Pepsi in the morning at 8:05 every morning. Those kind of like weird people things that make writing in your world interesting. I missed all that when, being home, working at home and seeing people on Zoom, it's not the same, but being around people and their secrets and knowing who people are and the lies they tell and the way they shave stories, we kind of missed all that with the pandemic.
all the little behaviors that they themselves may not recognize that you see, what I call quirks, tics, and bad habits.
Yeah.
And there's a whole chapter in the art of character about that. And those are like the little things that make a character vivid immediately. You do that really well. I mean, I noticed some of those. I was actually making some notes.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but the two most important words I ever learned as a writer were from Oakley Hall, and they were steal wisely.
I do that too. I
Yes.
love stealing wisely.
Yeah.
And you know, and I basically, yeah, I do write every day. I write every day. And I'm not saying all writers should write every day, but I do it because of something Walter Mosley said a while ago. He said, write every day because each day you change. Each day something happens and it affects who you are. It affects your outlook on life. And if you miss a day, it won't make it into whatever you're developing, whatever you're writing. So, you know, I've always thought about that. It's like, well, I'm different today than when I was yesterday because this thing happened to me today. And I want to somehow get that into whatever it is that I'm writing. Any insight, it can be minuscule, but that's what, you know, that's what good writing is, taking all that you've learned, all that you're scared about, all the secrets that you have. Because you know, one big secret that us writers have are we think we're all hacks and imposters. That's one of my biggest secrets. And you bring that to what you're writing every day. And it informs your characters, it informs your dialogue. You know, I guess that's why I don't mind writing every day, because I love this. I love taking what I've learned and what I've seen and what I've heard and my own kind of self-discovery and infusing that into these characters. I don't know about you, David. Tell me this, because you do a great workshop on characters, and I've read your book on that over and over again. It takes me about, I think, my third or fourth draft of a story to actually know who my people are and what their secrets are. I have the big secret, but I don't know who they are until maybe 3 or 4 drafts way down the line. Do you find that? Or because you're so good at character, you know immediately off the bat who these people are?
No, I definitely don't. And let's table that because I want to get back to that. But I want to get back to, I have actually hit a fallow period where I hit something. I was working on a sort of urban fantasy, and I realized I had to write about the future.
Yeah.
I realized that I hadn't thought about it deeply in any meaningful way, and that I actually didn't understand the present terribly well. And I thought, you know, and I took myself to school, and I've been reading voraciously.
Yeah.
Which also means depressingly, because trust me, if you know, reading about the present and what people think the future is, only some of it's really,
Yeah.
let's put on a show. So like, hey team, let's hide in the bunker. And so it's been really sobering, but it's been really, I finally begin to feel that I'm a little bit more in command of what I was hoping to say. However, with the characters, I'm doing something completely different with this new book. I created a character who is immortal.
Oh.
Doesn't mean he doesn't die. What happens is he lives, he dies, he spends a little time in the other world with his goddess bride. This is from Celtic myth, by the way. And then because he screwed up once, he doesn't get to spend eternity with her. He has to come back and do it again until supposedly he learns the wisdom of all the world.
Ah, okay.
And then he finds out that's a trick. Because there is no, you don't possess wisdom. You behave wisely.
Ooh.
That means you have to be in the world.
Yeah.
So being wise is never an escape from the world. It's just a way of being in the world. And he realizes, okay, so this is never going to stop. So then he stops thinking about, well, how am I going to get out? He goes, well, I'm not. So what am I doing?
Yeah.
I might as well help somebody else. And so that's sort of, but as you know, somebody, you know, death is one of the great motivators. You know,
Yes,
I am afraid of dying.
Yeah.
So I need to bump, whatever it is. I just, you know, I mean, I had a prologue, which is now gone, but the opening of the book was, I don't consider death a tragedy any more than I regard life a triumph. Life gets lived, then it doesn't. There's the miracle if you find yourself in search of one.
Yeah.
I'll find a way to weave that in somewhere else.
Right.
But that was like the opening salvo of the book.
Yeah.
The problem is it casts such a dark pall in the sense that, you know, oh my God, everything's going to go to hell. So I've had 2 editors look at this, I mean, it's so different for me. And they finally confirmed for me that I need to do something, which is change my pen name because it's so different.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on new pen names. But now getting back to the character thing, I do have sort of a nice intuitive sense of my characters, but I've also learned that's not enough.
Yeah.
Because very often what you think is the intuitive impression of character is really just a shadow of another character that you've read in a book, or sort of an amalgamation of another character. And you have to begin saying, yeah, well, what if? And you have to begin changing them. And you have to begin challenging them. And you need to, what the things I always think of, what are their contradictions?
Mhm.
How are they
Yeah.
this, but also that?
Yeah.
And then I have a whole thing about what I call the pathological maneuvers and the persistent virtues.
Yeah.
What are the defense mechanisms they've used to
They
avoid
put up
the
the-
pain of life?
Mhm.
Are they lazy? Are they, indifferent? Are they cynical? Are they afraid? Have they learned to settle for second best because they tried at the bastering once and failed miserably? And
Right.
that shame and that pain was something they never want to live through again. Or
Right.
they triumph and they have a confidence about them that they carry with them until this story where it really gets tested and they wonder whether they really are good enough or things. And so these are the kind of questions I ask. And it's by doing that, I always start with my character work. And once I'm seeing the characters as though somebody I know,
Mhm.
and I'll have the story, but then I kind of I got to give them freedom to run
To do their thing.
and
Yeah.
let them write some of the story on their own. And I just kind of let them put them in scenes and then don't stop them if I say, well, no, the story is,
Yeah.
Now that can sometimes lead you into some weird cul-de-sacs because I don't want to write that story because that story is going to be hard. I want to go to the
Right.
same place and you got to bring them back. But that back and forth, I mean, that's writing. You can't.
Yeah.
Josh Moore says, never regret the pages the reader will never see.
Yeah.
And you just have to realize you're going to be doing a lot of writing and to get rid of. Some of my blog posts were like, how I murdered 22,000 darlings.
Yeah. No, it's hard. But then when you arrive at a character and you love them, then you don't want anything bad to happen to them. But as mystery, crime, suspense, thriller writers, that's our job. And, I loved Mickey from Toxic Things.
Me too.
She was the first character I've written that wasn't centered on me. This middle-aged woman, this was not me. It was an amalgamation of my oldest niece and my daughter, who are both these lovely young women who are so smart and so kind and so curious. And, with my daughter growing up, I'm losing as much control over her, where she goes in the city. She has a license, so she drives without me and she goes to parties. I don't do play dates anymore. So I don't know what she's doing. And being a crime writer, the first thing that comes in your mind are the worst things that come in your mind as a crime writer. And as wonderful and kind and smart as they are, both my niece and my daughter, part of me, I fear for them. And so I wanted to take a young woman like that, and put her in harm's way, have her be, of both worlds, because I'm finding that my daughter is both digital and analog, because, we're Gen Xers and that's how we are. And so, she likes video games, but she also likes actually talking to people in person. She gets annoyed when she has a group of girls over and they're all on their phones because she wants to interact with them. So, she likes new things, but she likes old things. And Mickey is that. She is fascinated by people's memories and fascinated with the past and wears her mom's hand-me-downs and drives her mom's old car.
You know what else she has? So she does. It really caught my eye when I was reading.
But
the musicians that pop up in this book, the ones who are named are all old school.
They're all old school. That's right.
Aretha,
And
Brothers Johnson.
We listen to yacht rock and all the 80s R&B and all that. And one of my daughter's favorite songs is Steely Dan's Dirty Work, because we play it over and over and over. But she also likes Shawn Mendes and Justin Bieber and all these people on YouTube and TikTok that I have no idea who they are. And I find that fascinating. And, when you're talking about character, it's like they don't, just because they are a certain group, a certain generation, that doesn't mean that they can grab other qualities from other places. I mean, we're all weird in that way. So yeah, I love characters. I just don't know them until that third, fourth draft. And whenever my agent wants to read something early, I hate it, because I know she's going to say, well, they're not really popping off the page. And it's like, I don't know these people. So no, they're not going to pop until I get to a certain page. I don't know how they're going to talk. I don't, know a lot of things about them. And I actually do the Myers-Briggs thing, personality thing.
That's
I
interesting.
do that for all my like major characters, because it helps me figure out what is it that I'm trying to focus on that is them, that is their essence. And Mickey, she's a dolphin. She's whatever, INTF or whatever that is, but she as if she were an animal, she'd be a dolphin, because dolphins are smart and friendly, and they do all these tricks and they lead people to safety, but they also get caught in tuna nets, and orcas eat them. It's like the dolphin's life can be a perilous one. So I think about that when I'm creating characters.
I wonder what that line, when I was reading, I was going, oh, well, I'm a dolphin. I kind of wonder what that is. Where does that come from? Now I know. That's really fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
I tell people, I said, when I'm teaching, I say, I'm going to give you some tips, but I don't want you to think that this is the way. Most important thing any writer needs to learn is what works for you and how do you work. You're going to hear all this advice from, Stephen King and Anne Lamott and all these other people, and they're successful, and it's good to listen to them.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work for you, let it go.
Right.
It feels as though you're not getting anywhere with it, then let it go.
Yeah. And that may take you some years to figure that out. You're not going to get it like that.
I say, if astrology works for you, use it. If the I Ching works for you, use it. If Jungian types work for you, these are, but let me tell you some of the pitfalls that may occur with those techniques.
Yeah.
And if that happens, this may be a way to correct that.
Yeah.
And so you really are almost always kind of just stepping off a cliff with a book.
Yeah.
And it's true. What you're saying about, I'm not going to know yet, the characters aren't going to pop yet. Two things. One, I remember I asked Kate Atkinson once, I said, how do you develop your characters? She goes, with my fingers. And just, that's, I do it through the writing.
Yeah.
There is no other way.
No.
And I had a problem with a protagonist. He was the youngest of three brothers. It was a Salvadoran American family. And I was the youngest of four brothers. And no, it was a different book. He actually worked. It was I'm sorry, I'm confusing. Was that he was a kind of person who was trying hard not to be who he should be. Instead of just trying to live up to something. As a result, there was kind of a shell.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to make him more real. And what I had to do was, I had to crack that shell. I'm sorry, I'm realizing now I'm confusing two characters. It was the youngest son that I was having problems with. And I realized what I had to do was give him an act of cruelty, because as the youngest son, he was also the one who was picked on.
Yeah.
So I had to once I saw him being cruel, the way for him, but I never put it in the book, but automatically, again, it was a secret. It made him dimensional in a way he hadn't been before.
Yeah.
And the book took off.
Yeah.
There. And it's just, these are just things that, you wish you could tell students, okay, when you're starting, you do this, that, and a book will emerge at the end. It's kind of like, if you have sex, you'll have a baby, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're lucky enough to
Maybe.
get there, but
Yeah.
But it's just, you're really just, it's a constant, okay, I'm floundering. There was a wonderful quote, it was on Writer Unboxed recently, and was Isadora, is it the dancer, Isadora Duncan. And she said, as a creative artist, you have to realize that you're always failing.
And that sucks.
You're never succeeding.
Yeah.
You just have to get used to that.
It sucks and it's exciting because it's like, well, maybe this time I'll get closer to that. And you get up the next, you don't go on Goodreads and read the reviews, and you get up and you're like, okay, I'm going to get closer to it. I'm going to get closer to it. And every book, every chapter, you're getting closer to that. And that's exciting because maybe this time I'll land it. Maybe this time people will say, oh yeah, I know that person, and what sucks about being a writer, because you can have 99% of the people say, oh yeah, I know that person. And the 1% is like, oh, she did not resonate with me. And you're like, why didn't she resonate? What didn't I do? Maybe I need to study people closer. And it's awful that way, but it's also another kind of a gauntlet. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep studying. I'm going to keep reading good books. I'm going to figure out how they do these tricks, and failing is kind of like anything else. It just helps you get closer to perfection, which will never come. But it's just one more for those of us who are so stubborn that we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep writing this, and we're going to keep telling these stories. It just is. It's inspiration. It's a challenge. I don't like people telling me I can't, and so I'm gonna do it. And you're gonna like her next time. And if you're not gonna like her this time, you're gonna like her the next time, and the next time, and the next time. And eventually I'll get tired of it all, but not anytime soon.
But I think, well, that's just, I think what you're bringing up is that if you don't love the process, you're in the wrong business.
Yes. I love writing. You love writing. I mean,
actually, this has to, because I've hit a place where, as a older white male, I am not the flavor of the season. Sales have not been that great. And so trying to get an agent for this book has been a struggle. And I may have to self-publish.
Yeah.
But it's probably my best.
I've done. Yeah. Which I've done. I've done that.
Yeah.
And what's weird is, it's hard all the way around, because I've had people email me on Sunday morning saying that I'm not going to read the book because your characters are probably woke and you're probably going to talk about race and blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
well, yeah, they were going to read you anyway. So
yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I am centering characters who, yes, they are Black, but they're also women. They're also people. They're also Americans. And I don't understand the whole, well, I can't relate. It's like, well, are you reading, Stephanie, what's her face, Meyer, Twilight? Are you connecting with vampires and werewolves and orcs and all the rest of it? And you're telling me that you can't relate to someone who bleeds and, loves and lives like you. So, it's, I don't know. I love the process. I mean, I get up at 4:40 every morning to write. And sometimes as I'm getting older, it's getting a little harder to do that, to be as excited, because I'm just tired. I still look forward to, I get my coffee and I sit down, and I hate that I have to stop to start the day job, because I love the process of writing and having written. And if you don't have that, you as a writer, then you're not going to last long at all, because it is not, it's not the hardest job in the world. There are so many, but it can be one of those that really knocks your confidence when someone says, yeah, 1 star, you suck. Yeah. Well,
getting into that whole issue of, well, no, I'm not going to read you because I don't like this woke, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to, it's like the line from Revolution. You go around, if you go around talking about Chairman Howe, you're not going to get with him anyhow.
Oh.
And it's, if I'm going to talk about lived experience of people of color, and you're not interested because it's going to affect you as though you're being preached at, that's on you, dude.
Yeah.
I'm finding this entire episode of our history. I mean, I was born in 53, and I was too young to truly appreciate, the racial struggles that were happening. I saw them, and I was a teenager when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I was in third grade when JFK was assassinated. These things, affected me, but I lived in Columbus, Ohio, this very safe, middle class.
Yeah.
My dad was an executive. I went to a Catholic school where everything was, I mean, trust me, it was, I just met some of my grade school classmates, and people don't believe the stories we tell. I mean, my pastor was a boxer before he became a priest, and his first stint was at the chaplain of Boys Industrial School. And if you know anything about Irish and industrial schools, it's like the Magdalene laundries and stuff like that. I won't bore you, but I mean, I was Toastmaster once at 11th Crime, and I told the story of when I signed my own report card in third grade. Straight A's. But okay, second grade, I signed my report card. Of course, I couldn't even sign. My mother had beautiful script.
I'm trying to picture that, right? Yeah. With the big pencil.
She hit her with some of the hammer as she was trying to write her name. And anyway, but it's a long, funny story. But he figures prominently in it, and it was the most frightened I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And but other than that, I led a very sheltered existence. And now what I'm feeling is that, well, it's my time to be a freedom writer. It's my time to put something on the line here, because it's going to get taken away, and not just from people of color. It's going to be taken away from all of us who support a multicultural, multiracial democracy. It's at risk.
Yeah.
And the moment is now.
Yeah. And I never understood it, because as a Black kid growing up in America, and as an English American literature major, white literature, that was the norm. And that didn't stop me from enjoying it. I mean, I grew up reading Stephen King, and Stephen King is in probably one of the whitest states, in a place where I have never visited. As a little Black kid in South Los Angeles, I knew nothing about Bangor, Maine, right? But I did know that it was some scary shit for a clown to be in a sewer with eyes like dimes. That scared me. That connected with me. I didn't know anything about Stephen King's life as a white guy in Maine. I just knew that was scary. Same with Jackie Collins. I read a lot of her stuff. And one of my favorites was, the Lucky Santangelo novels, where Lucky is this Italian-American mob princess, right? And she did things in New York. And here I am, again, a young Black girl in South Los Angeles, loving these stories, because there was something that resonated. There's something about Lucky that I saw or aspired to be. And for our writing as authors of color, that's all we're asking. It's like, yeah, this is a little darker than yours, but this story, these toxic things, it's about a mother and her daughter and their relationship. It's about secrets that parents keep from their kids. It's about, murder and crime, and that affects all of us. Just because the characters look different doesn't mean that I am not saying something to you that can somehow affect or shape your way of thinking. And that's what I don't get. I know it's getting better in some ways. I mean, there are more writers of color of crime fiction than ever before, and I'm so proud of that, because we have lots of stories.
They're really at the forefront.
Yeah.
Sean, Attica. I mean, you guys aren't just there.
Thank you.
As Pete Townsend said once of The Who, says there was a period there where we weren't just on the bus, we were driving.
Yeah.
And you guys are driving right now. And that, Alex Segura, I mean, there's a Gabino Iglesias. There's so many, people of color and immigrants or second generation Latinos who are writing just brilliant imaginative, wonderful stuff.
Yeah. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
And what was it? James Baldwin has this wonderful quote saying, you think that what you're suffering has never been suffered before, and your feelings are unique in the world. And then you read.
Mm. Yeah.
And for me, that's why I want to read
That's exactly
writers of color or Irish writers. I'm Irish American, but I know jack nothing about, I learned about Ireland because my character comes from Celtic myth, and having to really understand the Irish experience has really sort of like, because I find out that, if not for the Irish Americans, we could have lost the Battle of Gettysburg. And 2 weeks later, the Irish were involved in the race riots, the draft riots in New York, where basically blacks were driven out of Manhattan forever, and that's why they ended up in Harlem. And thousands were killed. An orphanage was burned to the ground. 11 were lynched. I mean, that's how many they can credibly count. That's my Irish American heritage.
Yeah.
The best and the worst of America. And and when people say, well, you're trying to make people feel bad about themselves. No, I'm trying to learn the truth.
Yeah.
I can handle that. Why can't?
And as a reader, because we are readers first, isn't that exciting? Don't you want to know these things? I mean, we pick up books to learn more about someone else, someone's experience. Even, people, like you just said, you're Irish American, you're learning stuff about your own people that you didn't know. And that's why books are, can you imagine if you went into a mall, to the food court, and there was nothing but Auntie Anne's, pretzels, and freaking Panda Express, and that was it? We go to buffets and we go to food courts because there are so many different things to choose from. I would be bored if I could only eat 2 things in life. So I want to read that. I want to read the buffet. I want to read all the different experiences. I'm not saying that, you have to read genres that you can't stand, but for crime and mystery, there's so many different.
This is what I'd also say. What? Don't read something if it's painful.
Yeah.
No point.
Yeah.
Now,
life's too short.
I agree. And, in high school, they try to make you read those great books. And I wasn't ready. I did not get Moby Dick, but I read it when I was 27, and it was one of the most amazing literary experiences of my life.
Yeah.
I was ready for it then.
Beloved. I read Beloved in college, and I read it and I understood it as a college student, but it wasn't until I became a mom that it's like, oh, I get it, because I do anything to protect my daughter. And I couldn't imagine what it would be to be a mom in slavery times and wanting to do something to protect her, even if that meant killing her. I didn't and that's what I was saying about, you come to your writing every day as a different person. Stories you thought you knew, they change as you get older. Things that you blame your parents for or you ding them for as a kid, when you get older, it's kind of like, I get that. I see why they made that decision. And again, getting up and putting pen to paper or reading something or somehow getting that new knowledge, that new insight into your stories, it just changes everything and makes it more rich than what it was the day before.
Now, I would like to ask another question, but we're getting close to the time when we should open it up to questions from people out there. But the question I would ask, in the event we don't have any questions, is you mentioned that Mickey is the first character that wasn't based somewhat on you.
Yeah.
And yet, Lou Norton, and excuse me, I've got to read the names, because I can't remember names of anyone, Miriam and Gray.
Yeah.
They're really quite different.
Yeah.
And so, you drew on yourself, but it's not as though you've written yourself. And I found that when I used myself as a character, it didn't work. From what was happening was that I thought there were things on the page and there weren't.
Yeah.
He was actually really flat, and I had to change him from me in a material way so that I had to discover him, not just sort of use myself. It was a weird thing. I found out that drawing on myself alone created a really flat character because I just assumed too much.
Yeah.
But you escaped that.
Yeah, because I think it was it and now she's gone. Like the epitaph in the very beginning is something about a woman's heart has many chambers or something like that. And for each story, I visit different chambers of who I am, that comprise me. And, for Lou, it's the brave person. I am a cancer survivor. So I pulled that from myself to create Lou, this strong, wise character who is kick-ass. So that's my survivor part. For Miriam Macy, a woman of a certain age who feels like she's getting older and being forgotten and left behind, I was 45-ish when I started writing that story. And so I felt
old. Oh, no.
I know, right? And then for Gray,
I think I just turned to dust.
Well, I'm just getting up there. But for Gray, I think I kind of pulled on every part of myself and some women I know, from being in difficult relationships to wanting to disappear and become someone else, and there's still, parts of me that I have yet to put down on, on the page. So we will see.
Lucky us. Okay, let's see what we got here. I'm supposed to click this, and here we go. This question's for you. Where do you get your inspirations, and what is your day job?
My day job, I am a fundraising writer at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, which is the big fancy hospital down here in Los Angeles. So I write letters, reports, anything that's written down, that's what I do. And that's been a great help because I don't get up and I'm not very precious with my writing. I know how to write on a dime because that's what I have to do. So that's my day job. And I get inspiration from everything from news stories. Like David knows, I'm on Twitter all the time. That's my favorite social media. I love Twitter. To just listening to people tell stories. We'll have brunch with some of our old high school friends, and listening to their stories inspires me. There's a scene in Skies of Ash, I think, and it's Lou and her best friend, Lena. And Lena is she's fiery. I love Lena. And she takes pole dancing classes and she has a recital. And that came from listening to being at my friend's house and one of her friends coming in saying, I'm taking pole dancing classes and come to my recital. And I'm like, there's a recital for pole dancing class. There's a recital for pole dancing class. And I love that. Yeah. And so it found its way into a story. So I'm inspired, writers, we're vampires. We listen and we just take and take.
My metaphor is we're magpies.
Ooh, shiny.
Thing is fascinating.
Yes.
Okay, here's an anonymous question for Rachel. What is coming next? More in the series or another standalone?
Another standalone. I am loving standalone land, only especially because I do get to visit parts of myself and what I believe and what I'm scared of at the time. I can do that in series, but they're just kind of hard in terms of marketing and getting people to read the next one if they haven't read the first one. So it's way too stressful. I'm working, the next book that's out, it's called We Lie Here. And it's another young woman's story. And this is a story about Yara, who returns to her home in Palmdale, which is in the Mojave Desert down here in California.
Sadly, I know it.
Yes, Palmdale is a very interesting place.
Isn't that in a wind tunnel? Is it, or am I?
It's
up there in the hills.
Pretty interesting. And she returned home to plan her parents' 20th anniversary celebration. And when she does that, a distant cousin finds her and says, I have something to tell you. But before she learned what that is, the cousin's found dead. So it's another kind of family secrets, who were your parents before they became your parents type story. And I'm actively working on a story about Catalina Island, which is well, you guys, this is California. It's off the coast of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And it's another, murder,
It's
death.
where Noah
story.
Cross has his albacore club in Chinatown.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Catalina is a very interesting place.
Really fascinating place.
It's fascinating. There has some race issues there, and which I find fascinating because there really are no Black people who live full time on Catalina Island, and there's a reason why. And so that's what I'm exploring about home ownership and what happens on an island where real estate is really tight. And yeah, so I'm in the second draft, which is the worst draft for me, because that's where I actually know what the story kind of is. And it's taking me forever. And I hate it and I love it because I'm getting closer and closer, but then I'm getting closer to that draft, that third, fourth draft that I love so much, where it becomes art.
Well, the second draft is sort of like the middle of the book. It's like that's where you're lost and you're struggling. The protagonist is struggling.
Yeah.
Out
You feel like you're the imposter, where you feel like you're the hack the most,
yeah.
That you can't do it, but you can do it. I can do it. I've done it before.
Tell me I've done it. McDonald, Rachel, what is your process like when you first start creating your characters?
When I first start creating them, I look around and see, I try and see, do I know someone like this? If there's not one person, then I take a bunch of things and make who they are. But it isn't until this second draft where I know what the story is that I start shaping who they are, what they believe, what they're scared of. Because when I first start, I think they're scared of this thing over here. But once I understand what the story is, they're actually scared of that over there. This is where all those, you mentioned Stephen King and Lamont, this is where all the gurus start talking to me about, pulling out that motivation, pulling out their fears and, their secret motivations, their external goals, all that stuff. That's where that happens in this second draft, as I'm getting to know what the story is. I also read a lot, and I collect, being in fundraising, I collect kind of some of the donors in my head, how they talk, how they dress, what they sound like. This is where all the people watching that I've missed since, being locked away, where you kind of just sit at a mall and listen to people talk and listen to, see people walk by, and you're inspired by living people. I get that. I use that too. So my characters, my inspiration, it comes from everything. I don't understand how there's some writers who like lock themselves away and don't come out and don't socialize how they do it. I mean, I consider myself a socialized hermit. I always say that I'm a socialized hermit. I will come out because I know how important it is to be around people, to interact, to listen, to be the magpie and take that thing over there and that shiny thing over there to create this thing back here. So, yeah.
Beth Jersey is asking, will you be writing any more Lou Norton books?
I don't know. I hope so. I love Lou, but I don't know.
Is there any talk about a TV series or a miniseries?
There was. I was optioned for several years with Lionsgate, and that option's expired, and it'll be picked up. I keep saying Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch, that was forever. That took forever to get to the screen, and it may take forever for Lou to get to the screen. But when it does, I'll let you all know. That'll be exciting.
And I'd look forward to that. I just think she's great, and I think that would be. I said this at the time. This was I thought it was the best police procedural to appear in America in a very long while, and it didn't remind me of Bosch so much, which despite it was in LA. It reminded me of John Harvey's Charlie Resnick.
Oh,
you don't know him? Yeah, they take place in Nottingham. And it reminded me of the Sean Duffy novels of
okay.
I
know those. Mm-hmm.
And those are two of my favorite cop protagonists, and Lou is the third.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I think our time is done, my dear.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you for always being there for me and for championing me when no one wanted to talk to me. I remember those days.
Okay, Greg, take it away.
Greg,
Rachel and David, thank you both so much. And thank you to all the people who've joined us tonight. It was a really special evening. Just a reminder, a recording of this program will be made available on our website and on the Walnut Creek Library Foundation's YouTube channel. And if you did enjoy tonight's program and look forward to more, we do invite you to make a donation to the Library Foundation on our website or from the link in the chat box. Your gift makes a big, big difference. And we hope that you will join us next month, March 8th, for an in-person Live from the Library program, an evening with Elise Hooper, author of Angels of the Pacific. We'll be in the Oak View Room at the Walnut Creek Library. It's been a really fun night tonight, and please join us for our next show. And good night to everybody. Thank you.